All right, thank you for joining us today for another edition of Ask Anthony Live. Remember, if you have a problem you just can't solve, you can always email me at askanthony@firstcoastnews.com. This is a chance for me to answer some of your emails that I might not be able to get to on television, but I want to try to answer as many questions as you have. And I want to talk about a really interesting email I received recently. We're going to focus today about real estate and identity fraud, and this has to do with that. I recently received an email from a viewer named Peter who moved from out of state to St. Johns County. That email on your screen says, "Hello, Mr. Austin. I replied to an ad for a home for rent. He said he was the owner. He gave me the code to the lockbox, which I went and looked through the home. I sent him money for deposit and first month's rent plus extra fees. Within a few days of moving in, the sheriff's office showed up saying that the house was rented by someone else through a rental property company." A very unusual situation, I will say, but unfortunately, this is not my first time hearing about that. So I have a special guest joining me today. That is Miami attorney Ellen Patterson. And she says she's seeing a surge in complex real estate and identity fraud cases that exploit gaps, for example, in corporate filings, online verification systems, and title processes. So Ellen, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's talk a little bit about this email. How common is a situation like this?
Well, first, thank you very much, Anthony, for inviting me in to speak with you. Unfortunately, it's more common than you think. I mean, fraud is absolutely on the rise, especially in South Florida, and where you have, foreign individuals who own properties and a lot of time are not present here in Florida or constantly residing in the unit or the property. They're overseas, they may rent it, or it may sit vacant if they're snowbirds. And people take advantage of that. Unfortunately, fraudsters do take advantage of that. Individuals will rent properties that are not theirs, take the money and run. You also have a big scam is with vacant lots. People will profess to be the owner of the vacant lot. More importantly, they'll go on the public records on Sunbiz. As you mentioned, sometimes there's a flaw in the system there in that the Sunbiz records with the Department of State, pretty much anyone, unfortunately, can log on, fill out a form to amend, to change who the officers of an LLC or a corporation may be, pay a small fee, and then when someone goes to check, oh, is John Smith really the owner of this company? Then John Smith appears to be the owner. And the lot is sold, the fraudster runs off with the money, and then the new owner comes knocking, down the road later and says, "What are you doing on my land?" Or "How did my title get changed?"
And Ellen, these scammers and these con artists, I mean, they're getting more sophisticated. So you talked about the situation involving the state's website, Sunbiz. I understand in another case, a fraudster actually used a fake Venezuelan passport and also like a deep fake style video call to impersonate an overseas property owner. And by the time the buyers or lenders realized the truth, the deals were done. So let's talk about how people are using fake images and AI to conduct these scams.
Yes, it's very scary. I mean, computers and technology and AI are great and they're horrible at the same time. I hate to say, it's opened up a whole new world. The instance that you're talking about, there was a gentleman, again, a foreign individual from Venezuela who owned property in South Florida. Someone pretended to be him. They had a fake passport made, a fake ID made. All they had to do was, if you Google, you can Google, what does a Venezuelan passport look like? I mean, it's great that you have that access, but then fraudsters can take that image off the internet and use it to create the fake passport, stick a photo on there of someone else, either them, usually not themselves, usually some poor person who they've paid a few bucks to pretend to be John Smith, and they will use that as the ID when, like in this instance, doing a remote notary closing. So that's like another step. That's one of those things that's beneficial to our industry to have these remote notaries, but then you're no longer sitting down at a table in person and seeing these people face to face. You're looking at an ID on a video screen. We all know how great videos are, especially on Zoom. How clear is that ID? Could you tell if it was a fake if you'd seen it in person? Maybe, maybe not, but chances are more likely you might have been able to if you'd seen it in person. But you're looking at it being held up on a video screen. You see a picture that matches the person sitting on the video screen, of course, because that's the fraudster or the fraudster's accomplice, and they pretend to be the person. And like you said, they take out a loan or they sell it even. Sometimes they're ballsy enough, excuse me, to sell the property, take the money, and then when the new owner comes back into town, they find someone living there, or what's more common is they get sued for foreclosure 6 months down the line, and they're like, "What the heck are you talking about? I never took out this mortgage. That wasn't me." So the fraudsters are able to use Google to search images to create fake passports and fake IDs. There's also voice technology recognition, kind of works against us in this day and age, because if they can find you online anywhere, a Facebook account, everyone has videos posted on their Facebook account, right? All they need is your voice saying a few words. They can take those words and process them through this voice recording software, and they can take your voice and make it say whatever they need it to say. So they can now make a phone call saying, "Hey, Sally, it's me, John. You know me. You've known me forever. Look, I'm sick. I'm in the hospital in Spain. I can't make it. Can you please, you know, make sure you let the property inspector into the property. I'm selling my condo." And people think it's the real person. It's very
Right.
scary.
It is really scary. It happens more often these days. So let's talk about what red flags people should look for, business owners should look out for before it's too late.
Absolutely. To circle back quickly to the email you received from the gentleman about the rental property, the first thing I think you could do in that instance, individuals, is go to the property appraiser's website in the county of the property that's in question, and look to see if the name on the property appraiser that says, this person owns this property is who you're speaking with, is who you're communicating with. A lot of times the fraudsters will be smart enough that if the property appraiser says John Smith owns the house, they'll claim to be John Smith. But sometimes they're not even smart enough to do that. They'll just say, "This is Larry. I own the house. Send me the rental deposit." Well, if Larry's name doesn't show up on the property appraiser website as the owner, huge red flag.
Right.
Beware. You need to figure out who the real owner is. Business owners, a lot of the property appraisers now, thankfully, have a system in place where if you sign up, you'll get an email alert if title to your property changes or there's an instrument recorded regarding your property in the public records. The property appraiser will send you an email if you provide them with an email address and the authority to do that. That's great. By the time you get that email, the fraud has already occurred, but at least you learn about it sooner rather than later. And obviously, in these situations, the quicker you act, the better. I mean, if you find out today versus 6 months from now, that could make a huge difference. So individuals definitely sign up for that service. But I mentioned the business owners because my hope is that the Secretary of State and SunBiz come up with a similar type of notification system
Right.
where if someone goes online and changes the articles of an incorporation or amends who the members are of a company, that some sort of notification is at least emailed to the prior person saying, "Hey, this change was made, FYI." That's not in place currently. And to be quite honest, I haven't heard that that is going to happen. But that is my hope, that something like that will soon be put in place, because it seems like if they can do it with the property appraiser, why can't they do it with the Secretary of State? In the
Right.
meantime, all I can say is it's unfortunate, it's time consuming, it's a pain in the butt, but go online and check your corporate filings, at least once a week, and see if there's a change, if someone's changed something. It's worth the 5 minutes that it takes to make sure your documents have not been tampered with.
I think that's such an important point. It is always worth it just to go and double check and check all your official records to make sure that everything is okay. So, if something does happen to you, if you fall victim to a real estate scam or an identity fraud situation, Ellen, as a legal expert, especially in this type of situation, what legal recourse do you have if you've been defrauded?
If you're a property owner, if you own real property, hopefully you have title insurance. Not to, you know, try to endorse it, but in South Florida, I would highly endorse title insurance because step one would be you make a claim on your title insurance, and hopefully they'll step up to the plate and hire you counsel that you won't need to pay for out of your own pocket. Short of that, again, it's unfortunate, and even if you are a victim of fraud and it is blatantly obvious, you'll have to take the legal steps necessary to get title to your property back into your name. Or if there was a fraudulent mortgage stuck on your property, you'll have to file a lawsuit seeking to quiet title or to void that mortgage and make your allegations that it was a fraud. As soon as you find out, file a police report. That's one of the first questions I always ask people when they claim they're a victim of a fraud. Did you contact the police? And if you didn't, why not? There needs to be a record of exactly what happened and when it happened. And the sooner you get that in writing, the better, because, people forget facts as time goes on, and you need to act as quickly as possible. Notice is key as well as notice to, you're going to be upset with a lender who puts a mortgage on your property because they were a victim of a fraud. You're a victim of the fraud, but you have to remember the lender's also the victim. Unless you can find that they were in cahoots somehow, which is rarely ever, if I've never seen that the case in my years of practicing. The lenders are making a loan to someone who's provided the fake identification. They've relied on it just as much as anybody else would. So, if you can make your claims to the lender, hopefully they'll work with you. But so contact the police. If you have title insurance, file a title claim. Contact a lawyer, of course, I'm going to say. If you don't have one provided to you by your title insurance company, get the necessary paperwork filed with the courts to clear your title, whether it's to wipe off the mortgage or to correct the deed chain.
And Ellen, you've kind of touched on this throughout our conversation, but just before we wrap things up today, let's talk about, once again, what steps that people can take to safeguard against real estate and identity fraud.
Check your records. Like I said, I know it's a pain and it's time consuming, and no one in this day and age has time, but go on the property appraiser's website. Make sure your property still shows that it's in your name. Sign up for that service. I 100% recommend it. I'm not sure that all counties are doing it yet. I do know Miami-Dade does, Broward County does, I believe West Palm Beach does. Sign up for that service with the property appraiser site where you will get a notification if title to your property changes. If you own an LLC or a corporation, make that notation on your calendar to just hop online at Sunbiz at least once a week, if not more often, to make sure your corporate filings are the way they should be and that nothing has changed. Most important thing you can ever do is, if you own property that you rent, drive by. How many people, and if you can't drive by and you don't live in South Florida or you're a snowbird, have somebody local who can drive by for you. A lot of things can be found out just by driving by that property. If it's a vacant lot, what if you see a for sale sign and you're like, what the heck, I'm not selling it? If it's a home on a property, you could see someone living there when you don't have it rented. Or if you have a tenant and you know the vehicle that they drive, but there's different cars parked there every day, take note. It's your property. It's your investment. It's a big investment. It's worth the time and the energy to pay attention to it.
Ellen, you've offered a lot of great advice today. Is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap things up?
All I can say is, be diligent. Fraudsters are getting more creative every day. And there's a lot of things that, no matter how diligent you may be, you could still be a victim. But you can make those chances less likely by taking the appropriate steps ahead of time.
All right, Ellen Patterson, she is a Miami attorney. Thank you so much for joining us and offering your legal expertise and also advice in situations like this. Remember, if you have a problem you just can't solve, you can always email me at askanthony@firstcoastnews.com.